Am I the asshole for telling the truth at my best friend's wedding during my toast? I'm a 30-year-old male and my best friend got married last week. I just bought a house and my wife is expecting our son in November, so I let him know I was limited in what I could contribute financially. But I did tell him I would try my best. So I went to the bachelor party in Miami, I rented the tux, and paid for mine and my wife's dinner at the rehearsal dinner. I also had a gift of $300 that I was going to give them, but we will get to why I didn't. His fiancée at the time would text me multiple times a day with updates. Fine. I didn't always respond, and it got to the point where if I didn't respond at least once a day, I'd get a call from my buddy. She texted me for the following reasons. 1. My wife was not allowed to talk about our pregnancy at all. She didn't want anyone to focus on that more than her, the bride. 2. She was not going to order any special food for my wife. No one asked her to. My wife was fine with whatever she was going to be served. 3. I was not helping the groom enough. He had to help her with favors, seating charts, and programs, so I had to help him with those things according to her. 4. She said if I was a true best man, I would offer to pay for the bar bill. I don't even know what that means. 5. She had to read and improve my speech before the rehearsal dinner and wanted to be included as much as my buddy. She told me to make things up if I had to. I was not allowed to include anyone but the two of them, and no inside jokes or stories about my buddy that didn't include her. 6. Her last text said to tell my wife to keep it together and not make a pregnancy scene during the wedding. Also, she wanted her to choose a dress that downplayed her pregnancy as much as possible. I was just so aggravated, I spoke to my buddy to see if he could reason with her. He told me to just play ball this one time, it's her day, and to cut him a break because he'd be dealing with her nonsense for the rest of his life. The day of, all the bride and my best friend do is scold me, berate me, and bark orders. I head down to the bar for the drink. The bride's mother is there and warned me not to get drunk because I ruined her daughter's day enough. That was the final straw. I didn't give them the card with the cash, and in the speech, I used my friend's exact wording about having to deal with her nonsense for the rest of his life. I wished him the best and told him I'd always be there for him, especially during the divorce. So, am I the asshole? Yeah, you are. Good job.
Story time about how I caught my boyfriend cheating on me and I got him arrested. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My boyfriend and I have only been together for 2 months. I'm gonna call him Rex. We live in a pretty small town and everybody knows that Rex is a player. He asked me out and I said yes because I always had a crush on him. After a few dates, he asked me to be his girlfriend. I said yes under the condition that he was totally monogamous. And he said of course. A few weeks into the relationship, I noticed that he was always hiding his phone from me. And whenever he would put his phone on a table, he would flip the screen side down. Of course, this had me on high alert. One night we went out with friends and I made sure that he got super drunk. I took advantage and went through all of his Instagram DMs. And of course he had been talking to about 30 girls. And I knew some of these girls and they knew that we were together. He had even set up a date with one of the girls for the following day at a bar. And you better believe that I was gonna catch him red-handed. I show up to the bar and I don't see them. I go back to the parking lot and there he is in his car making out with this girl. I knock on the window. Part 2 is up. My boyfriend is in his car making out with another girl. I caught them red-handed. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My boyfriend Rex quickly puts on his shirt, and the other girl puts on her shirt too. I try to open the door, but it's locked. And to my surprise, my boyfriend gets mad at me and asks me what I'm doing there. So of course I say to him, what are you doing here? That's when he finally gets out of the car, and he tells the other girl to stay in the car. I told him that he had promised to be monogamous. That's when he said that I was crazy and that he had never promised that, and that he had no intention to be serious with me. Then he said that I made that entire conversation up in my head. And then he told me to leave. I was so shocked. I couldn't believe what he had just said to me. The girl gets out of the car and she actually apologizes to me. And she told me that Rex had told her that he was single. Then Rex lunges at her, starts pulling her hair, and pushes her to the ground. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend lunges at the girl that I just caught him cheating on me with. He starts pulling her hair and pushes her to the ground. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Tried to get him to stop and I pulled his arm. Then he turns around and starts chasing me. I run back into the bar and 2 guys stop him. I called the cops right away and they came and arrested him. Later on that day, he asked me to bail him out and I said no. Everybody knows what he did. The other girl is trying to press charges and my dad wants me to get a restraining order. But I'm still in love with him and I don't want to get him in any more trouble. I even want to take him back. But I know I shouldn't, right? Story time about how I got catfished by my best friend. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My now ex-best friend and I hung out almost every single day. We were super close. Let's call her Natalie. Natalie and I would sometimes get into drama and her mom didn't like this. She considered me a bad influence on Natalie. But honestly, the drama was coming from both sides. Natalie and I had a group chat with one other person. One day, Natalie sends me a message through the group chat saying that she couldn't be my best friend anymore and that she's really sorry. She really didn't explain why though. I was crushed. She had been my best friend for so long. 3 weeks ago, I noticed that someone added me on Snapchat by search. I didn't really think too much about it. I added them back and we started having a conversation. She was a young girl my age and we started having conversations about boys we had crushes on, school, and lots of other things. I asked her to send me a picture of herself and she said she couldn't. That should have been the first red flag. Then we decided to meet up at the mall. I wait for her at the mall but she never shows up. Part 2 is up. I'm at the mall waiting for this girl to show up but she never does. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Like I said before, this girl told me she couldn't send me any pictures, so I didn't even know what she looked like. That's when I started suspecting something. We got along so well in our Snapchat conversations, it was almost too good to be true. So of course, I decide to call her. And guess who answers? Natalie, with her new friends who she knows that I hate. At that moment, I realized that she dumped me and then got with these new girls that she knew I hated. Of course, I was furious. I wanted to say something, but before I could, Natalie hung up the phone. And of course she did. She knew I was going to go off on her. Well, I start calling Natalie's phone several times, and she doesn't answer. Then I see that she unadded me off Snapchat and blocked me. So now I have no way of getting in contact with her. I spent weeks talking to this girl only to find out it was my ex-best friend catfishing me. So of course, I drive all the way to Natalie's house and her mom answers. Part 3 is up. So I show up to my ex-best friend's house who's been catfishing me for weeks. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Her mom was not happy to see me. Like I mentioned before, Natalie's mom thought I was a bad influence on her because we always got into drama. I proceed to tell Natalie's mom everything in detail. Her mom was shocked. She couldn't believe that her little daughter would be capable of such a thing. She was so mad, and it was so satisfying to me. I leave Natalie's house and I go home. The next day, I see that all of Natalie's new friends are posting on their social media saying that Natalie's phone got taken away for a few months, and that whoever did it, F you. I know they know it's me. It turns out Natalie's mom took her phone away for a whole month and deleted all of her social media. She totally deserves it. Natalie and her new friends are in a different school. And here's the kicker, I'm gonna be going to the same school. Now I'm just hoping they don't try to do something to me. And if they try, I'm so ready. Storytime about how I caught my husband cheating on me with a neighbor. My husband is a really rich guy. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I first met my husband when I was 20 years old and he was 10 years older than me. He was basically my sugar daddy. Once I graduated college, he asked me to work at his company. I did all of the marketing. But eventually we wanted to have kids, so we decided to move to a bigger house. We ended up moving to a really secluded neighborhood with lots of rich families. One of our neighbors owned a yoga studio. There was also a young couple living across the street from us and they were also business owners. It was the perfect situation until I noticed that my husband was paying less and less attention to me. Well, I didn't hesitate to ask him why. He denied it and said that I was making things up in my head. So I installed an app in his phone that would send all of his text messages and emails straight to my phone. And guess what I saw? Text messages between him and the neighbor who owned the yoga studio. She was 10 years older than my husband, so I never saw it coming. I started collecting all the evidence into folders, pictures, and text messages. I wanted to catch him in the act. So one day I said I was going to a spa for the entire day. Part 2 is up. I told my husband I was going to be at the spa all day long. I wanted to see if he was going to bring the neighbor around to cheat on me some more. When I got in the car to leave, I get a message that he sent to the neighbor. Like I said, I had planted an app in his phone, so I was receiving all the messages he was sending and receiving. And of course, he sends her a message saying, hey, my wife's going to be at the spa all day. We're free. And she replies saying, perfect, I'll come over. My stomach dropped. I drove around for a bit and waited for her to get to my house. Then I see she sends him a message saying she's there. That was my cue to go back to my house to catch him in the act. I race back and enter the house super quietly. I go into the living room and don't see anything, so I assumed they were in our bedroom. I go up to the bedroom and no one's there. And I see they're in the backyard in the pool. I pull out my phone and press record. I run downstairs and I surprise them in the act. They were both naked and my husband jumps out of the pool and wraps himself in a towel. Our neighbor stays in the pool. My husband says, I was gonna tell you, I swear. It gets worse. Part 3 is up. I catch my husband doing dirty things in the pool with our neighbor. I'm recording all of this, by the way. He says he was gonna tell me. So I show him all the evidence that I had been gathering, all the messages and the pictures. But little did he know I had already hired a lawyer. I'd known about the affair for about a month at this point. I had already been working on the divorce with the lawyer, documenting every single transgression my husband committed against me with our neighbor. And when I told my husband, he freaked. The neighbor, aka the woman my husband was with, she got out of the pool and went home. I printed out some flyers with all the pictures she had sent my husband and spread them around her yoga studio. I now get $10,000 from my husband monthly. Story time about how I did the dirty with a celebrity. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I've been modeling for the past 2 years, specifically on Instagram. I basically made it my job to DM as many celebrities as I possibly could. I knew that it would only be a matter of time before at least one said yes. And that's what happened many times. I would usually DM about 5 celebrities a day, men and women. The next day I checked my DMs and one of them had written back. This was a huge celebrity who I was not expecting to reply, but I was freaking out. We had a conversation all through DM and then he asked me for my phone number. So we moved over to texting and quickly he asked me if I wanted to get together. I was like, duh. So we decided to meet at a bar. But because of COVID, we decided we would both get tested and then meet up. Really responsible. We both tested negative and then I got ready and went to the bar. Of course, I was extremely nervous. I show up to the bar and he greets me right away and we just start having a conversation. He asked me if I wanted to be an actress and told me that he could help me out with that. But we all know that was just a lie. We go to his car and start making, I'm making out with this big celebrity in his car. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. Let me explain how he got in his car. We were at the bar flirting, and then he brought up acting. He said that if I wanted to become an actress, he would be happy to help me. And he said that he actually was staying at a hotel room nearby. That he had a script he wanted me to read because he thought I'd be great for the leading lady. I was floored. I didn't think he was going to be moving that quick. I hesitated, but eventually said yes. Once we're in the hotel room, he orders champagne and we start watching a movie. And he pulls out his laptop and tells me to read the script. As I'm reading the script, we start kissing and doing other things you guys already know. After we finished, I asked him if I could continue reading the script. Then he said, "No, I'm good." My heart sank and I thought I was going to poo my pants. I said, "What do you mean you're good?" Then he said he couldn't cast someone who would just sleep with someone on the first date. Then he just sat on his laptop and ignored me. Of course I left. I was holding back my tears because I was not going to let him see me cry. Once I got home, I cried and I decided to block him from all my social media. As I was about to block him from my phone, he messages me and tells me to go back to the hotel. This was 2 hours after he told me to leave. But of course, I actually went back to the hotel. I go up to his room and there he is waiting for me. Part 3 is up. After this big celebrity tells me to leave, I leave. But 2 hours later, he's asking me to go back to his hotel room. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. So I went back to his hotel room even though he was a little bit rude. I just couldn't give up the opportunity of dating a celebrity. I show up to his hotel room and he apologizes. He said that he has trust issues from all his past relationships. Then I pointed out to him that he had the hotel room ready to go and that it happened to be just by the bar we were at. He stays quiet and then he says, "I need you to sign this NDA. I read it and signed it, mostly because I just didn't want any trouble. Then he says, "Hey, I want to order dinner for us. What do you want to eat?" Then he said he wanted to wine and dine me. He said that he liked me, but the whole NDA thing really threw me off. We ended up watching a movie and then I go back to my place. The following day, he calls me and asks me if I want to hang out again. We had lunch and then I told him I had to go home. He's been asking me out ever since, but I don't know. I kind of get a bad feeling from him. What do you guys think I should do? He is a celebrity. Story time about how I stole my best friend's boyfriend. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My best friend and I had known each other for almost 7 years. We met in college and she was always dating around and had several boyfriends. I had no boyfriends because my parents were super strict even though I was in college. There was only one boy that I really liked, but like I said, my parents were super strict so I could never date anyone. What's worse is that I know this boy had a crush on me too. Fast forward 5 years later, my best friend and I are living together. She's on Tinder, Bumble, and all these other dating apps. She had been going on several dates because she really wanted to find a relationship. Well, one day she comes home and she says that she really liked this guy she went on a date with. They ended up dating a month before I even met him. One day she invites him over because she wanted me to meet him. He comes in and as soon as we lock eyes, I'm in shock. It's the boy that I had a crush on in college. Which, like I said, I knew he had a crush on me too. We hugged and chatted for the entire night, and I could tell my best friend really liked him. A few days later, he starts following me on Instagram and we start DMing. He tells me that he had a crush on me in college and I tell him that I did too. Part 2 is up. My best friend's boyfriend had broken up with her because of me. I didn't have the heart to tell her. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. A few days later, she started going out on Tinder dates again. I could see that she was feeling better, so I decided to confess to her everything. And she told me she could tell that he and I liked each other. Then she told me I should date him. Well, I didn't waste any time. I sent him a text message and asked him if he wanted to meet up for dinner. And when we did, he asked me to be his girlfriend. We did it for 6 months before he proposed. He even got my name tattooed on his neck. The only problem is that my mom thinks he might do the same thing to me. I don't even want to think about that because I truly believe that he loves me. But let's hope not. I've been planning the wedding and I asked my best friend to come. Of course she said yes. She's super happy for me. And she actually has a boyfriend now. Do you guys think my fiance will end up doing the same thing to me? Story time about how I found out my boyfriend's ex-girlfriend was spying on us in the bedroom. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. My boyfriend and I have been together for 1 year. Our relationship is really good. We're like best friends and we tell each other everything. He always wants to spend time with me and we're planning on moving in together. Our families love each other and they're looking forward to us getting married someday. I'll call my boyfriend Dan. When Dan and I started dating, he told me that he had a really crazy ex. He was extremely controlling and didn't let him hang out with his friends or even his family. And when he broke up with her, she went nuts. She actually told her family that he was abusive just to get back at him. When we got together, Dan told me that he was scared his ex might try to do something to us. I told him not to worry, that she wouldn't do anything at all. Boy, was I wrong. Dan had his own apartment and I would stay at his place most nights. And of course, we did stuff in his bedroom. One night that we're on his bed doing stuff, I see a little tiny lens on his bookshelf pointing straight to us. I hadn't noticed it before, so I asked him what it was. He said he didn't know, so he went to it and pulled it out. It was a tiny little camera. Part 2 is up. When my boyfriend and I are doing the dirty on his bed, I notice there's a little lens pointing straight at us. He goes to grab it and we realize it's a little camera. The whole time we've been doing stuff on his bed, it's been recording us. That's when my boyfriend Dan said that it must have been his crazy ex. Let's call her Casey. He had told me that she was really crazy, but I didn't think she was that crazy. Dan starts looking throughout his whole apartment and he finds 2 more little cameras. One in the kitchen and one in the bathroom. As you can imagine, we didn't sleep that entire night. Of course, we went to the police and they opened an investigation, but they said they couldn't find anything. A week later, I get a DM from Casey, his ex-girlfriend. She starts abusing me through DM, calling me a bunch of names. She even said that I stole Dan from her, but I hadn't even met Dan when they broke up. Then she sends me a picture of my house. house, which means she knows where I live. I go straight to my boyfriend's apartment, and when I open the door, guess who's there? Casey is sitting on the couch with my boyfriend. It gets scarier. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend's crazy ex is sitting on the couch, and I'm terrified. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. She had just finished sending me a bunch of DMs on Instagram, totally abusing me. But my boyfriend didn't know this. I walk into the apartment and they're both sitting on the couch. She turns around and asks him, "Is that her?" My boyfriend looks at me with a serious face and says, "Yes, that's her." Then she shows me DMs on Instagram that I had supposedly sent to some guy, and that she passed herself off as this guy to see if I would fall. And the messages were so dirty and disgusting. I tell my boyfriend that's not me and that I would never do that to him. He just stares at me and doesn't say anything. That's when I try to show him all of the DMs that she had just sent me, but I noticed they were all gone. She actually unsent every single DM. Now I had no proof and it was just her word against mine. That's when I accused her of planting the cameras in our bedroom. She actually smiled at me and turned around and told my boyfriend she would never do that. Then she slapped me. Boyfriend's crazy ex slaps me and lunges at me. Of course, I start attacking her right back. My boyfriend separates us finally and asks both of us to leave his apartment. I was so crushed that he didn't believe me. So far, she had spied on us in bed, hacked my Instagram to send DMs to herself to make it look like I was talking to another guy, and threatened me by telling me that she knew where I lived. Oh yeah, and she physically attacked me too. I left my boyfriend's apartment and a few days later he comes looking for me. I explained everything to him and he said he had no choice but to believe me. His ex was too crazy. Then he told me that she went back to his apartment that night and picked his lock. She got naked and crawled into his bed. He woke up, kicked her out, and went straight to get a restraining order. Scanned his apartment for more cameras and found 2 more. What should we do? Story time about how I hooked up with my best friend's boyfriend a few days ago. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. A few days ago, I broke up with my boyfriend, and that same day, my best friend's boyfriend started texting me. Trust me, I know this is wrong, but he's so hot. Flirted back and forth through text, and after a while, he asked me to come over to his house. And I went. Oh yeah, and I've known my best friend since we were 4 years old. We haven't always been best friends because there was a time where we hated each other, but recently, in the past year, we've actually become good friends again. When he asked me to go to his house, I said yes. I knew my mom would say no, so instead I asked my brother if he could take me, and I promised him that I wouldn't do anything bad, and he said it was fine. Let's call my best friend's boyfriend Rex. Rex told me to run straight up to his room so that his family wouldn't see me, because they liked his girlfriend, who is my best friend. I got up to his room, we started watching The Notebook. He was being super sweet and affectionate, and soon he started trying to kiss me, and I kept saying no. But eventually I gave in, so we kissed and cuddled on his bed. Part 2 is up. So there I am making out with my best friend's boyfriend in his bedroom. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. After we kissed and cuddled for a while, of course I had to go home. After that, he started asking me to send him pictures, and I told him I couldn't do it because I felt guilty. He was dating my best friend after all. Then, stupidly, I gave in and I sent him the picture because I just felt pressured by him. Finally, I told him that we couldn't keep seeing each other because it was just wrong. We agreed and stayed friends. Of course, I caught feelings and I was totally heartbroken. Oh, and did I forget to mention he was my first kiss? After a few days, I noticed that he unadded me from Snapchat. I messaged him and asked him why. Said he was catching feelings for me, but that he didn't want to lose his Playboy reputation. Got upset and ignored his messages, but that made him want me even more. Part 3 is up. So I caught feelings for my best friend's boyfriend. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. After we broke things off, he told me that he was catching feelings for me. But I've been ignoring him and his messages ever since. This has made him want me even more. So he actually broke up with my best friend and asked me to be his girlfriend. Of course I said no. I told him I couldn't believe what he was saying was true. How could he be with my best friend, hook up with me, break up with her to only be with me? He could turn around and do the same thing to me too. My best friend doesn't know that her boyfriend broke up with her because of me. She is so depressed because he left her. Now I feel terrible and I actually can't even sleep because of this. I want to tell her so bad, but I just can't bring myself to telling her. I had to talk to somebody, so I confided in a friend and I told her everything, and she's been helping me. But I still don't know what to do. What do you guys think I should do? Lesson learned. Definitely don't ever fall for your best friend's boyfriend. I know you guys are going to come for me in the comments, but I know that I did something wrong. But let's see what you all have to say. Story time about how I sabotaged my best friend's relationship with her boyfriend. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I met my best friend 3 years ago in school. Since then, we've been inseparable, we have each other's backs, and I love her to death. The only problem is that she has terrible taste in men. She started dating this new guy 6 months ago, and as soon as I met him, I did not like him whatsoever. We all went to dinner. I went with my boyfriend, and my best friend went with her boyfriend. Let's call my best friend's boyfriend Anthony. Anthony was super cocky and arrogant. During the dinner, he started pointing out how my best friend had gained weight. Let's call my best friend Anna. Every time he would say something about her weight, Anna would just laugh. It started pissing me off. Wouldn't it piss you off too? After dinner, I talked to Anna and I asked her if she was okay. She started to cry. She confessed to me that he was always bullying her and making fun of her extra weight. She also confessed that she thought he was seeing other girls. I tried to get her to break up with him that same night, but she said no. She said she loved him. So I made a fake Instagram profile and started DMing him from it. And guess what? Right away, he started DMing me back. Part 2 is up. So I started DMing my best friend's boyfriend on Instagram through the fake account. I knew he was going to fail the test. Right away, he started messaging me back, writing flirty texts, asking me what city I was in and what I was doing that night. Little did he know he was talking to his girlfriend's best friend. I asked him if he had a girlfriend, and he replied no. So I told him we should go out that night. He said yes, and as soon as he sent over his phone number, I started screenshooting everything. I even emailed the screenshots to myself just in case. I run over to my best friend's house and I show her all the screenshots. She wasn't even that surprised because she suspected he was cheating already. She started to cry and I told her, you have to break up with him now. She calls him and tells him to come over, but he said he already has plans because he thinks he's going out with this girl on Instagram. She told him that she really needed to talk to him and that it was important. He said okay, but he could only come by for 5 minutes. When he finally got there, I hid in the bedroom and listened through the door. She confronted him with all the screenshots. Of course, he started denying everything, so I came out of the bathroom, come back for part 3. He denied everything and said the screenshots were photoshopped. So I come out of the bathroom to confront him myself, and I tell him, you were texting me the whole time on Instagram thinking you were talking to someone else. He didn't have any response. He was caught. Then, like the narcissist that he is, he actually told my best friend that I had been chasing him for months. She turns to me and actually asks me if it's true. I said, of course not. Then I told her to grab his phone and check his Instagram. He must have more DMs. So she snatches his phone, runs to the bathroom, and locks herself inside. Anthony runs after her and starts trying to kick down the door. I call 911, of course. Then he turns to me and calls me the C word. I thought he was gonna hit me. My best friend opens the door and throws the phone in his face. It turns out he had been DMing 15 other girls that same day. He did break the door, so my best friend filed charges against him. At least he paid for the door. Story time about how my boyfriend caught me with my sugar daddy. Quick disclaimer, this is not my story time and my eyes are red because I got sunscreen in them. So my boyfriend and I have been together for almost 4 years. Relationship itself is good, but the only problem is that he doesn't really pay for anything. I pay for the bills, almost all of the rent, and I even pay when we go on dates. I've always had a good job and he's always had like mediocre jobs here and there. I've always told him that I want him to get a better job and he says no because he's comfortable at the job that he's at. Meanwhile, I'm busting my butt and paying for everything. The only things that he pays for are when he goes out to eat by himself or if he's hanging out with his friends, or sometimes here and there he'll buy groceries, but it's really rare. So 2 years ago, I decided to find myself a sugar daddy. Number 1, I want the money, and number 2, I just want to feel taken care of. So I went through a few sugar daddies, and I didn't tell my boyfriend that I was actually doing this. Finally, I found myself the perfect sugar daddy. He gives me $5,000 a month and takes me out shopping whenever I want. We usually go out to fancy dinners, movies, things like that. Whenever I'm with my sugar daddy, I tell my boyfriend that I'm hanging out with friends. I was out with my sugar daddy one night, and my boyfriend walks into the restaurant. Part 2 is up. I'm having dinner with my sugar daddy when my boyfriend walks into the restaurant. By the way, my sugar daddy did not know I had a boyfriend. As soon as I see my boyfriend walk in, I tell my sugar daddy that I have to go to the bathroom. I literally bolted to the bathroom. As I'm in the bathroom stall freaking out, my boyfriend calls me. So I answer the phone and he says, hey, are you at the restaurant? I swear to God, I just saw you run into the bathroom. Who's that guy with you at the table? I was caught. I had no option but to be honest with my boyfriend. I tell him to come to the bathroom and he comes in and I explain to him that it is my sugar daddy. Then he stares at me for a few seconds and asks me, how much money does he give you? I decided to lie and I said 3,000 instead of the 5,000. And my boyfriend says, wow. And I'm like, aren't you mad? And he said, no, you're just gonna have to share now. Excuse me? Then I told him I didn't want to be in the relationship any longer because he's a man-child and I had to pay for everything. Begged me not to leave him and he said that he would get a better job. We're still in the bathroom at this point and my sugar daddy's waiting for me outside. Then my boyfriend says, if you don't want me to go out there and tell him that you have a boyfriend, you better start giving me some of that money. I was shocked. Part 3 is up. My boyfriend threatened me and told me that if I didn't share the money, he would tell my sugar daddy that I had a boyfriend. I believed him. I went back to my sugar daddy's table and we basically had dinner with my boyfriend sitting across from us having dinner with his friends. The whole time I was trying to figure out how I would break up with my boyfriend without having to share the money that my sugar daddy gave me. I told my sugar daddy that I wasn't feeling well. He called me an Uber to take me back to my apartment. I got to my apartment and I started packing my stuff. Like, I knew my boyfriend was bad for making me pay for everything, but I didn't know he was that bad. Freaking threatened me. Then he starts calling my phone, sends a text message and it says, I'm gonna be home in 5 minutes. So I gathered all my things, ran downstairs and waited behind the building for the Uber. And my boyfriend sees me, comes up to me and rips my bag away from me. Tried to get my phone, but I took it away from him. And he said that I had to share the money that my sugar daddy gave me. Finally, the Uber arrives and I jump in. My boyfriend actually pulled me by my hair to try to get me out of the car. I've blocked him and haven't spoken to him since, and I'm still with my sugar daddy. Story time about how I lost my V card and my dad found out. My dad is insanely strict. I couldn't wear skirts or shorts. I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. I couldn't have guy friends. I was never allowed to go out anywhere by myself. Instead, my dad sent my older brother with me everywhere. He hated and I hated. By the way, I was 16 when this all happened. I needed some type of freedom. So I decided to join track and field. I asked my dad for permission and he said yes. At first, I loved it. I trained every day after school and I also met new friends, guys and girls. And my brother wasn't there, so I was able to talk to all the boys. Well, there was this one boy, let's call him Jake. Jake was so cute. I knew that he liked me and he obviously knew that I liked him. He was the fastest guy in the group and he would go out of his way to help me out and give me advice. So we started talking on the phone almost every day for like 10 minutes. He knew my dad was strict. We would see each other at practice almost every day. He asked me to be his girlfriend and I said yes. It was our little secret. We decided to stay late after practice one day. We thought we were by ourselves at the gym. We started making out, and one thing led to another. Part 2 is, so my boyfriend and I were doing it at the school gym. We thought we were by ourselves. It happened really fast, and we got dressed. Then I went home and had dinner with my parents. Everything was completely normal and fine. Until I get a text message from my friend. Her text said that someone saw Jake and I doing it in the school gym. Boy, did my stomach drop. I instantly started to panic because my brother went to the same high school. I knew if the rumor got around, my brother would eventually hear it and tell my dad. So I told my friend it wasn't true. I didn't sleep that whole night. I got to school the next day and everyone was looking at me weird. And at lunchtime, I get a text message from my brother saying that he needs to talk to me. I knew I'd been caught. I didn't reply to his text and I just ignored it. I went to find Jake and I told him what happened. He told me that someone from track and field saw us doing it and started spreading the rumor. He told me we should just deny it and I agreed. My heart was pounding in my stomach the entire day. I go home and as soon as I walk in, my mom, dad, and brother are on the couch. And without saying a word, my dad grabs my phone and starts reading my text messages. Part 3 is up. So my dad takes my phone and starts reading all of my messages. It confirms that I have a boyfriend and I've been talking to him every single day. My mom was crying the whole time and my dad was just yelling at me. He took away my phone, my computer, and even took the door down from my room so that I had no privacy. Then my dad made me get in the car and he drove me to Jake's house. We knocked on the door and his mom opened the door. She tried to calm my dad down, but he wasn't listening. Then Jake comes downstairs and my dad just starts yelling at him too. But Jake tried to deny everything. His mom told him to stop lying and then he finally said yes. We did it. My dad told him to never look for me again. I never saw Jake after that, and now that it's been a few years, I'm dating a girl now, and I don't know how to tell my story time about when a photographer shamed me for not having abs. I so want to tell you guys who this photographer is, but I don't want to get in trouble. I will give you a hint. He's a New York-based photographer and has a lot of followers on Instagram. The shoot happened in 2017 in my apartment. I had met the photographer back in 2015 and we had been shooting since then. My husband was in the apartment with me, so I wasn't alone, but I had known the photographer for a long time. So I spent the entire morning getting ready. I thought I looked bomb. We were shooting lingerie that day. As most of you know, I'm a pretty healthy person. I drink lots of green smoothies, water, I'm vegan, I work out, I'm pretty healthy. But it doesn't mean that I have abs. Getting abs is really hard. So I changed into the first lingerie set. I started shooting, everything was good. But then he started acting a little strange. That's when he started saying that in my Instagram pictures, it looks like I have abs. And I was like, oh, I have gained a little bit of weight. And he said, oh, okay. I said, why, what's up? And he burst out laughing and said, well, where are those abs at? I was mortified. Part 2. Then the photographer said, where are those abs at? I was so mortified, you guys. There I am in pelotas thinking I look amazing in my lingerie set. All this photographer is thinking, well, she doesn't have abs. She doesn't look good. So I said, I can't believe you just said that to me. Then he tried to laugh it off. I didn't say anything else, but after that, I felt so insecure. I kept trying to cover my stomach and I was on the verge of tears. What right did he have to judge my body? I changed into the next outfit, which was underwear, no top. Of course, I was covering my boobies with my hands. And as I was posing, he started saying, suck in your stomach. I was so angry. So of course I did it. We shot one more look after that. Once we were done, he went to the bathroom. Went to my husband and I told him what the photographer said. He was shocked. He was like, do you want me to tell him something? And I was like, no, I just want him to leave. When he came back out of the bathroom, he started transferring all the pictures to my laptop. So we sat down on our couch and stayed there for like an hour. I was so angry the whole time and I just wanted him to leave. So eventually my husband told him that we had to go run some errands so he could leave the apartment. And even then he was still taking long. I will never shoot with him again, asshole. Storytime about how I found out my girlfriend was cheating on me with my sister. Girlfriend and I have been together for 8 months, and when COVID hit, we decided to just quarantine together, and basically we moved in together. Oh, and yes, I am a girl. We got to know each other really well, and we really enjoyed the relationship. Well, my sister lost her job because of COVID, and she asked me if she could move in with my girlfriend and I. Of course, I said yes. She's my sister, and I totally have her back. So my sister moved into our guest bedroom. My sister also had a boyfriend, let's call him Jason. Jason was so in love with my sister, he wanted to propose and even asked me to look at rings. Well, Jason proposed and my sister said no. Everyone was shocked. My sister didn't give a reason why she didn't want to marry him, but she was really depressed. So my girlfriend would talk to her and just try to be her friend and comfort her. And I was happy that my girlfriend was trying to help out my sister. Jason kept trying to get my sister back, but she kept saying no. Well, one day I wake up from a nap and I hear weird noises coming from my sister's bedroom. I swing the door open and guess what I see? My sister and my girlfriend naked on her bed making out. The audacity. Part 2 is up. I walk in on my girlfriend and my sister doing the dirty. They both jump off the bed and start getting dressed really quickly. I left the room and sat on the couch. I couldn't even speak. My sister comes out of the room and asked me to understand. She explained to me that my sister was so kind to her after her breakup that she couldn't help but falling in love. I couldn't believe she said love. I just started to cry. Then my girlfriend comes out of the room fully dressed and she swore that this was the first time they had ever even kissed. I didn't believe it for 1 second. My girlfriend was surprisingly really calm and it made me feel even worse. I started to get really angry, realizing that the whole time my sister was living there, they were probably hooking up and that's the reason why she didn't want to stay with her boyfriend or marry him. So I went into my sister's room, grabbed all her clothes and started throwing them out of our balcony. I even threw her laptop out the balcony. And we were on the second floor. My sister was just chasing me around the apartment trying to stop me, but I would push her away. And I noticed my girlfriend is on her phone. I took the phone away from her and guess what she was looking at? Come back for part 3. After I caught my sister and girlfriend doing the dirty, I threw all my sister's things out of my apartment. Then I noticed my girlfriend is on her phone, so I take it away, and guess what she was looking at? She was deleting her Tinder and Bumble app, which means she was looking for people to date. Mind you, her and I had been in a committed relationship for the past 8 months. My girlfriend had no emotion. She didn't apologize, didn't say anything, but my sister was super emotional, apologizing. Then my girlfriend pipes up and says, this is all your fault. I said, why? She said that I pressured her into moving in with me and that everything happened too quickly, which is not true. We both decided to move in together, and my girlfriend suggested the area we should actually live in. Then she turns to my sister and tells her that she's immature and that neither of us are worth being with. I told her to get her things and leave. She said, you're breaking up with me? I was like, of course I am. And she said that I would never find anyone as good as her. I forgave my sister because she's blood, and we're still living together. My sister has a boyfriend, and I'm trying to date people, but my ex still calls me even though she said I wasn't worth being with.
Story time about how I found out my boyfriend was seeing his ex. And yes, he's still my boyfriend. We haven't broken up. I just don't know what to do. Well, we've been together for 6 months. I met him through some friends, and every time we hang out with those friends, someone always tells me, hey, your boyfriend was hitting on so-and-so. And of course, I just never wanted to believe it. He's really attractive, young, and owns his own business, and I know that attracts a lot of women. So when we first started dating, I gave him the option to have an open relationship because I knew that he was surrounded by women that really wanted to be with him, and he also just had a really social life. He said absolutely not because he didn't want to share me with anyone else. I said, okay, then we're committed. And he said, yeah, we're committed. 2 weeks ago, we decided to move in together, and we got a really nice apartment. Right now, we're actually in the process of moving in and buying furniture. Well, 3 days ago, my boyfriend butt dialed me. He didn't realize I could hear the entire conversation he was having over the phone. You'll never guess what I heard. Part 2 is up. Part 2. So my boyfriend butt dials me and doesn't realize I can hear the entire conversation. I could hear him talking to a woman. He was promising her that he would break up with me and move into the new apartment with her. And when she said, I won't believe it until you actually do it, he called her by her name. This is when I realized he's talking to his ex. The same ex he told me was toxic and abusive. He also told her that he only loved her, and that the only reason he hadn't broken up with me yet was because he was afraid I would harm myself. And that's when they dropped the bomb. She says, well, I'm 8 weeks along. You gotta hurry up. She was pregnant. By the way, I listened to their conversation for 10 minutes. I knew that he was at his business, so I decided to go over there and see if I could find them. Finally, I spot his car and drive up right next to it. Roll down the window and I say, check your phone. This man didn't even know what to say. He grabbed his phone and he looks at it. The look on his face when he realized I listened to the whole 10-minute conversation. Part 3 is up. Part 3. So my lying, cheating boyfriend butt dials me and I could hear the entire conversation he was having with his ex, who he was cheating on me with, and who was pregnant. He gets out of his car and runs over to me. He tries to open my car door and asks me to get out, but of course I didn't. My cars and my windows were locked. He started hitting my car window telling me to get out, and I could tell he was pissed because he got caught. So guess what I did? I drove straight to his mama's house and I told her everything. He was a mama's boy and I knew this would crush him. So his mom calls him and tells him to come straight to her house. He started swearing up and down that he only said those things because he's afraid of his crazy ex and he doesn't want her to take the baby away from him. His mom and him convinced me to stay in the relationship. We're still together. I don't know what to do. Should I stay with him or should I leave him?
Story time about how my fiance broke off our wedding because of my best friend. My fiance and I had been together for 2 years, but my best friend and I had been friends for over 8 years. So I trusted her with my life. When my fiance and I met, she approved and she loved him. She was always looking for a new relationship because she could never commit to anyone. Eventually, I started feeling like she was envious of the relationship because I had found someone that I truly loved and that wanted to marry me. On the other hand, she was a serial dater and went out with so many guys she couldn't even keep track. One night we had a double date and she brought this new guy she met. Throughout the whole date, my fiance and my best friend were hitting it off, talking, making jokes, and I was actually really happy because I was happy they got along. Her date even noticed this and commented about how we should switch dates. I thought it was so funny. Well, little did I know that after that night, they actually started texting every once in a while. Inside jokes and memes, stuff like that. I did know about it and I thought it was really cute and I was so happy that they were getting along. After all, she was going to be the godmother of our future children. One day I saw she sent him a picture through text message. You'll never guess what I found. Come back for part 2. Part 2. So I noticed my best friend sent my fiance a picture and he was in the bathroom, so I went ahead and opened the picture. You guys, it was a selfie of her wrapped in a towel fresh out of the shower. So of course I show it to him and he's like, oh my god, why would she send that? He totally played it off like he had no idea why she would send that to him. So I call my best friend and I say, hey, did you just send my fiance this picture? She hesitated for a second and then she's like, oh my god, please don't tell me I sent him the picture by mistake. And I was like, yeah, you sent him a picture of you in a towel. And she said, I'm so mortified, I'm so sorry, I meant to send it to somebody else. And then she's like, you believe me, right? And part of me didn't want to, but part of me had to. I couldn't believe that my best friend would do that, so I said, yeah, of course I believe you. And she completely changed the subject and told me about the guy that she was currently seeing who she actually meant to send the picture to. A few weeks passed by and my fiance says he has to go on a work trip. Weirdly enough, she said she was going to go on a trip with the guy that she had just met. I asked her to meet the guy before they actually went on a trip and she said no because he's really shy. Can you believe they went on this trip together? Come back for part 3. Part 3. So my best friend and my fiance go on a trip by themselves behind my back. The whole time they were on their trips, I thought he was on a work trip and I thought she was with some dude. Because of the time difference, my fiance kept saying that he couldn't FaceTime, so we would just talk on the phone. The conversations were really short and he was acting really strange. He told me he was on a work trip to London, and because the whole thing felt so strange, I decided to call his mom. So I call her and I'm like, hey, where did he travel to again? And she replied, Aruba. I didn't say anything to her and I just got off the phone. I knew he was lying. And I knew my best friend was in Aruba. I connected the dots and realized they were both on a vacation together. The day that he was supposed to fly in, I showed up to the airport knowing that he was coming from Aruba, and I see them walking out to arrivals hand in hand. They saw me right away, and my best friend literally ran away. That's when he told me that he no longer wanted to be with me and that he wanted to be with my best friend. I had already paid for the wedding. He was such a coward. 2 months later, I found out she cheated on him, and he came back to me. I said no. Story time about how this one girl bullied me so bad. She tried to beat me up, but guess what? The joke was on her because my sister beat her up. I was in 8th grade and I was bullied pretty badly, but this one girl in particular who didn't like me would make my life miserable. This girl was in 10th grade and I was in 8th grade at the time. I didn't defend myself at the time. I was really just scared of everything and everyone because I got bullied so much. And my sister knew that, which is why she was always looking out for me. She always had my back. So the bully, let's call her Jackie. Jackie started leaving me mean notes in my locker. And at the time, I guess I didn't really know if it was her. It could have been many people since I got bullied by many people. And the kids in my class would group around me whenever I would go to open my locker just to see my reaction when I would read the mean things she left in the notes. So for example, she would make fun of my acne and my big lips. But it got so much worse. One day I was walking down the hallway and she comes up right behind me and spills fake blood all over my back, making it look like I had my period. I was mortified, and she did this in front of everyone when we were on break. Then in front of everyone, she says that she's gonna beat me up at lunch and that I better be there, so come back for part 2. Part 2. So Jackie the bully spilled fake blood down my back, making it look like I had my period, and then she announced to everyone that she was going to beat me up at lunch and that I better be there. The bell rings and someone tells me that she's waiting for me at the soccer field. My God, I was so scared. Of course, I wasn't planning on going, but 3 of the girls in my class literally took me by my arms and took me to the soccer field. Gosh, were they mean. And of course, there's a whole audience waiting for me. Jackie was right in the center. As soon as I get there, she starts yelling at me. And you know what I did? I asked her, why do you hate me so much? She actually didn't know what to say. She stayed quiet. So I asked her, what did I do to you? Then she said she saw me on a commercial in our local channel and that it made her really angry. And I said, is that all? Then she said that she didn't like my face either. She starts pushing me backwards. She pushed me a few times and I fell back. She was literally about to kick me when I hear my sister yelling from behind the crowd saying, why don't you pick on someone your own size? The crowd parts and my sister comes through and tells Jackie to leave me alone. Then she tried to kick me again and my sister tackled her to the ground. Come back for part 3. Part 3, as Jackie the bully is trying to kick me, my sister tackles her to the ground. Well, Jackie got really scared because she was not expecting that. And my sister picks her up from the floor and throws her into a bush. Jackie starts to cry and she says that she's going to tell on my sister. Well, my sister says, I have all the notes that you've been sending to my sister and we can compare it to your own handwriting. Guess who they'll believe? My sister took me to the principal's office and we gave her all of the notes and I told her everything that happened. So the principal went and searched Jackie's backpack. Guess what she found? Scissors and tape. Jackie confessed that she wanted to tie my hands and cut off all my hair. She got suspended from school for 3 days. When she came back, her parents took her to my classroom and made her apologize in front of everyone. If you're being bullied, speak up.